With GT7 1.36 being effectively split up really into multiple parts, with some cars that you can buy now, some cars that you have to wait until later on, like the ambulance, we can drive the Corolla but not buy it. It's a pretty dumb way of rolling out stuff in the game, and it's clearly only intended to have people engaging with the game more. What we do have though is the C1 Corvette and the Maserati MC20. So for now, we'll start off with those. And at least from the general consensus in comments, certainly from myself as a Maserati superfan, of course the MC20 is pretty much, if not the, standout from this update. It's not a car which I ever, to be honest, thought they would add to this game, for two reasons. One, Maserati doesn't really get much love generally. In fact, GT7 has given them way more love than any of the previous games have, which is great to see. We had only the Gran Turismo, which I'm convinced was only in the series because it had that name, which is a great car, but you know, it's only one to choose from and not that many players did. Then, of course, in this game we saw a couple of classics, which was a great addition. It's some of Maserati's most iconic stuff, some of their best work was in those eras. But something new? Well, Gran Turismo doesn't tend to add the latest and greatest stuff in general, which is why stuff like the C8 Corvette, the Chiron, maybe not so much the Chiron, but even that's quite new to add to the series by Gran Turismo standards. Anything that's within a couple of years of the game coming out is usually quite a big deal, because they tend to wait more than a few years to add the latest cars. So on this occasion, it is actually quite special to see it. What do you get? Well, I feel like this is going to sound like a cop-out, but with a Maserati you have to go in with different expectations. Of course, compared to something like a Chiron that we got not too long ago, obviously the Aston Valkyrie, it's nowhere near those machines. Either in a straight line or around corners, certainly not the Aston, so don't expect it to be. Much like in real life, Maseratis are pretty much never designed to be the fastest at anything, either around a track or in a straight line, and the only times that they do is when they build an actual race car. And when they do go racing, they're very good at it, the MC12 being a prime example. This one is, of course, intended for racing as well, which Maserati is doing, but being the road version, almost all Maserati road cars are designed to be engaging, enjoyable and fun first, and then fast second. Which in other words is exactly the kind of driving that I enjoy. I couldn't care less if something is the quickest around the Nürburgring, I couldn't care less if it's the quickest in a straight line. If it's fun to drive and engaging, it will keep my attention for a lot longer. There's a reason why I have no interest in owning a GTR, and yet I've had 3 Maseratis at this point, despite having driven a couple of GTRs, and certainly on paper and in practice it would wipe the floor with the Maserati, but it's just not the same kind of vibe. This one is a distinctly more digital Maserati. It's a new age Maserati. Of course, they're trying to move away from Ferrari, establish themselves again. It goes back to turbo aspiration, as more recent Maseratis have, which was more of a 90s Maserati thing. But on this occasion, probably a considerably more reliable approach to turbo aspiration, and the specs are good. It weighs about 1,500 kilos, in fact it's 1,500 on the dot in the game, which is what, 3,400, 3,500 pounds, something like that in the States. 621 horsepower, incidentally just under 621 points as well, so quite modest compared to a hypercar. 300,000 credits is not that crazy either, but again, that's the kind of supercar it is. It's not on the level of Koenigsegg's, Bugattis, Pagani's, it's more like a Lambo, Ferrari, Porsche. It's that kind of supercar. So it makes sense for that kind of price tag, and I would say it is worth picking up. 300 grand is not difficult to get in the game. I could certainly see multiple players buying multiple cars and having different builds on each of them. You could have one that's relatively stock, that's for fun. You could have one that's more of a GT or track day kind of build, like Maserati's own racing versions and the track day special, kind of MC12 Corsa style. It's got a ton of potential for different builds. Certainly I'm planning to do some different ones as well. And again, for 300 grand, you can afford to buy a few of them. It's not that expensive at all. As long as you have the right expectations with a Maserati, I think you're going to be happy with it. For those like myself who are fans of the brand, you'll of course be happy to see it in the game. For others who maybe aren't Maserati fans, I could see it winning some people over, but I think for the majority of players you'll probably find it to be one of those cars which is kind of, okay, it's good. Like, that's the kind of reaction it will give you. It won't be like, whoa, this is the best thing I've ever driven, kind of like the Valkyrie again was, not to keep going back to that, but that was kind of a game changer in Gran Turismo 7 as far as road cars. This one is more like, yeah, that's a nice supercar. Kind of like the Ferrari F8 is itself. It's very fun, very enjoyable, really nicely balanced and fun to drive. But of course it's not the fastest thing around. It's very quick, but it can be beaten. Likewise with this one. And that is actually quite realistic, because that's exactly what Maseratis are like in real life. I would put them in the same category as stuff like Panoz, TVR. Yes, they sometimes do make tremendously quick cars, but that's not really what the brand is about overall. They're about being different, maybe a little bit oddball, certainly boutique, and a lot of fun and really engaging. And as far as a game, well, Gran Turismo does do a pretty good job when it comes to Maseratis and various other models, as we've looked at on the channel before, of getting most of that personality across as best as you can through a bunch of pixels. So my verdict on the MC20 is, if you haven't logged into the game and if you're not a Maserati superfan, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to rush to get this one. If you are a fellow Maserati enthusiast like myself, of course it's great to see another one added, with what, 4 Maseratis now I think in the game, which is a great addition compared to the one that we had for many years. And I certainly hope to see more in future. My fingers are firmly crossed for a Quattroporte at some point, of course, but I doubt that will ever happen. It's a very rare car to see in games. My simple verdict on this one is, it's a lovely addition, a stunning car with some very nice upgrades and nearly 1,000 horsepower fully tuned, so a 250 mile an hour car. Impressive stuff for a Maserati, but not necessarily an essential purchase, and not necessarily a car which you need to immediately boot up Gran Turismo and download the update to enjoy. But that's it for my thoughts. Of course, I'd love to hear yours down below, and of course, stick around on the channel for my coverage of the other cars in this update as well. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.